Keys to the Commonwealth, a podcast where we share the real stories of local community members who are using real estate to build personal wealth, along with tips and tricks from professionals across the industry. And now, your host, Landry Fields.
Welcome, everyone, back to the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast. As you know, each and every week I interview a local community member that is either personally invested or a part of the real estate process. Each day I am personally involved working closely with these real estate investors and realtors and anyone in between here in Kentucky. And like you, I'm interested in learning the keys to building personal wealth through real estate. Today, we've got a great show lined up for you. My guest today is a loan officer with Hometown Lenders. He's been in the mortgage business for approximately 9 years here in Central Kentucky and was a bronze level top producer in 2019, 2020, and 21. Born and raised right here in Lexington, he played baseball at Henry Clay High School, received his undergraduate degree from Miami of Ohio and Georgetown College, along with his law degree from St. Thomas University. And he is married to his wonderful wife, Amy, and together they have two dogs, Bean and Maddie.
That's my bad handwriting. That's Bo.
Bo and Maddie. Oh, that is my bad, too. So it is my distinct pleasure to welcome my friend Chase Holman today to the Keys to the Commonwealth studio. Thanks for coming on the show, Chase.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so like we'd like to start out every episode is, hop back in the DeLorean and tell me, how did you end up in the mortgage business to begin with?
All right. So I had a previous life where I practiced law, did that for approximately 5 years, and decided I wanted to make a transition more into the business world. Mm-hmm. And the mortgage business just seemed to be the perfect fit for what I had skills for, what I enjoyed doing. I really like the counseling aspect of helping people, and that's what I liked about law. That's what I love about this. It allows me to do both things, kind of wear two hats at once. So that's really what kind of drove me to the finance side, to the mortgage side of the business. Yeah. Yeah.
Law seems like it's always kind of frustrating where you want to help, but sometimes you feel like you can't in some respects, I'm sure. So helping people get their first homes or purchase their homes, finance it, figure out the ins and outs. I'm sure that's got a lot of reward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the most rewarding aspect of the job, obviously, is when you get somebody in that house that they never, maybe thought they could never get. That's really what is the best thing for me as far as being gratifying and really seeing your hard work go into it.
Right. All right, so, going back to the beginning of it, obviously, with building a book of business, like a lot of people in real estate, either building a book of business or building a book of property, so to speak, what was that transition like as far as getting into it, and what was kind of the hardest part you didn't foresee?
Well, the hardest part, I think, for me was just moving from a performance-based book of business to a sales book of business. Mm-hmm. It is similar in some regards. Anytime you're working for yourself, you're building your own book of business. Same with law, same with the mortgage business. What was difficult for me, I think, was trying to get a grasp on the sales aspect of it. I don't have background in sales before, and mortgage business is essentially a sales job. So that was probably the thing I was least prepared for.
Sure.
I was prepared to build my own book of business. I had experience doing it. When I practiced law, I came out of law school in 2008, right when the economy was having some trouble. Mm-hmm. So, I was familiar with really trying to build your book of business from the ground up, from nothing. And so I was ready for that aspect. But the sales aspect of it was probably the thing that I was least prepared to do.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about Hometown Lenders. What is about them? I don't think you started with Hometown necessarily, but, how did you kind of end up with them, and what is it about them that you like?
Yeah, I didn't. I worked for another company for the first about approximately 5 years in this business, and Hometown recruited me over from the company I previously worked at, and what really drew me to them was the comfortability and the family atmosphere at Hometown. If I needed to get the president of the company on the phone right now, I could call him and he would answer. And if he didn't answer, he'd call me right back. It's that kind of feeling, and it really has been from the top down. Everybody from corporate down to the branch level, all working together, common goal, to do the best job we can for the client. And that's really what drove me to Hometown. There is also, I like some of the initiatives that we have. Hometown has a clean water initiative in Guatemala.
Okay.
That really, obviously COVID has kind of thrown that in a wrench.
Sure.
We haven't been able to go down there very much, but I was really impressed by that. We also partnered with St. Jude. We just got done raising $1 million for St. Jude via employee donations.
What's the footprint look like for Hometown?
We're based in Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay.
We were one of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the country over the last year. So we started out about 30 branches. I think now we're about double of that.
Okay.
And that growth has happened very quickly. And one of the other things I love about Hometown is they really saw all of that growth coming. So they did a great job on the front end of front loading their hiring. Yeah. They staffed up in preparation. Everybody else was scaling down. We were going the opposite direction. And it really paid dividends, especially last year with the refinance boom. And, if you don't have enough underwriters or something like that, you can really slow things down. And they were really great in foreseeing the growth and just going ahead and staffing up, not waiting until we needed it, having it in place, so that way we could just kind of roll on.
I mean, obviously this podcast dedicated to kind of, obviously wealth building through real estate and all the different ins and outs of that, So obviously we've had kind of historic lows over the last couple of years. We've talked a lot, off the air, so to speak, with different, where mortgage rates are going and some of the things that are happening. Obviously there's been a lot of chatter recently here now, beginning of 2022 on what's happening. So, is it still a good time to refi at this point? What are you kind of hearing as far as where things are going over the course of the next year? I think I've heard about maybe multiple steps over the course of the next 12 months.
Yeah. So, right now is probably the last horizon as far as a refinance. I have some going right now. If you haven't already refinanced, then I would absolutely jump on this last opportunity because the interest rates for a multitude of factors are rising. There is the government buys a set amount of bonds every month, and they are rolling that back. So that means that there's going to be less money invested in the 10-year Treasury, and then that in turn will automatically bring the rates up some. The other major factor that most people are aware of is inflation. That's been all over the news for the last year. Pretty much, the rates have been staring the inflation in the face and not reacting to it. Well, we're starting to see that change. We've started out the new year, probably rates have come up about 0.25%. And that's, the new year, we're talking about, we're on the 5th. So,
sure.
In 2 days, basically.
And then like we've talked about, everybody's kind of gotten used to these really low rates when in reality, I don't think any of us really thought that they were going to stay there to begin with. And so...
Yeah, it's not the healthiest thing for the economy in general to have the rates where we had them.
Yeah.
To drive that prime rate down to nothing. They were doing that to basically stimulate artificially the market to kind of keep that sector of the economy strong. But in reality, 2020, 2021, in the grand scheme of things, since we've been keeping data, are outliers. 2021. Especially 2020 and 2021. You kind of have to throw those years out when you're looking at the historical data. Yeah. Because even if you take those years were outliers for so many reasons, not to COVID, everything that was going on. But historically speaking, we are still at historic lows right now, outside of the pandemic. That's the thing that I really try to get across to folks is, it's not a good idea to sit and wait for the rates to go back down to, where we were during the pandemic, because it's not going to happen. And if it does, then we've got bigger fish to fry.
As it were. Property prices come down, which I don't think, it's.
Yeah, there is that's the mad dash for the inventory is real, very real. And
it's legit too. There's not a falsified kind of.
No, and honestly, in this market, I've been around real estate my whole life. I've worked for a title attorney. Mother's an agent, wife's an agent. I mean, I have seen this market my whole life. And even during what would be considered the housing crisis in 2008, 2009, this market is insulated here as far as values. So even when the rest of the country, I was in law school in Miami, and I was watching what was going on down there. And there was so many people overextended and banks foreclosing, and it just tanked that market.
Yeah.
This market is so steady and so strong here that it's so insulated.
Yeah.
The demand is so high for housing here.
Yeah, totally. Kind of switching gears here more as far as an educational side on mortgage itself. I guess first part of the question was, somebody maybe either are looking to get their first house, or I would say more or less looking to buy their first investment property when it comes to debt to income ratio and some of those things. What is somebody looking at as far as what is needed from the mortgage side to look at, as far as pre-approval and what you're going to be needing to look at?
Well, there are the obvious things that most folks know about. Your credit obviously is going to play a heavy role. You want to make sure that credit is in as good a possible position as it can be when you go into buying anything. Now,
did they tighten the credit score? I thought they did a little bit at first. Did they loosen?
They are loosening that now.
Okay.
So that's a good point that you brought up. So we're seeing that more on an FHA side of things. So the government loans. So the conventional loan parameters typically haven't changed much. But what does change and what has changed is the government, because the government regulations are what affects those loan types. So you're talking about FHA.
So go through those, as far as what those mortgage types are as well. So obviously some of them can only be used for certain circumstances. What are those circumstances?
Okay, so FHA, that's Federal Housing Administration, VA, USDA, Department of Agriculture, rural housing loans. Those are only allowed on a primary residence. Okay. So those are the regulations.
First-time homeowners or your primary residence?
Has to be a primary. Yeah. That's the main thing. It doesn't have to be first-time homeowner. There are a couple of programs that are strictly first-time homeowner, but they are on the conventional side, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But the FHA loan program, the VA, the USDA, those are the ones that we're always watching the guidance on, because those are the ones that are typically changing the most. So they did tighten down. Last year, when we had such an influx of loans, some of those loan products have to be underwritten by the government. USDA has to be underwritten by the Department of Agriculture, as well as whatever mortgage company is doing the loan. So essentially, it has to be underwritten twice. And they did tighten that down. I think it was due to just a serious influx of people wanting those products. So they tightened the parameters a bit. They are loosening that now. I have seen FHA, USDA, VA allowing a lower credit score now. But those are the regulations we really have to stay on top of, because those are the ones that change a lot. Conventional loan is pretty cut and dry. You're going to be, just going to be for your higher credit scores, higher down payment. But the government loan products are great tools, and especially for a first-time buyer. When I bought my first home, I bought it in an FHA loan.
Right.
And
I think I did too.
Yeah, for the simple fact that that loan product is more forgiving when you're qualifying for it. So it's a great tool for a first-time buyer. I get this question almost daily. I got a first-time buyer. I get them from my agents, and I try to do my best to educate, but there is no true first-time home buyer. Now, there are two programs that are only eligible for first-time home buyers, but there is no true first-time home buyer grant program anymore.
Yeah, I was a part of that first, 2009.
Yeah,
I think it's when we bought our first house. Yeah.
Yeah, those have been rolled back now for quite some time. Yeah. But folks still think that they're out there. Now, there is still the tax credit. Okay. You buy a house, your first house, there is the first-time home buyer tax credit is still there. But the true first-time homebuyer grant programs that we had 2009, 2010, 2011, those for the most part have all been rolled back. So everybody's kind of in the same boat, whether you're a first-time buyer or they're like I mentioned on the conventional side of things. There is a Freddie Mac Home Possible and a Fannie Mae Home Ready that are only eligible for first-time homebuyers. So those with that exception.
Yeah.
But everything else, everybody's pretty well in the same boat. But, the FHA program is more forgiving, and I'll go because I could go really deep into all of these. But FHA is very forgiving as far as qualifying for it. Okay. It allows for a higher debt-to-income ratio.
Okay.
It allows for a lower credit score.
Gotcha.
It's the lowest down payment. Like if you had to come up with down payment, it's got the lowest down payment that you can, come up with.
So back to the conventional side of things, or just like, let's say we are, like me, I've already got a single home. There's all kinds of different loans for starting to invest in investment property, whether it's commercial or whether it's different types of conventional loans. I think there's a limit sometimes on the conventional loans, or how many maybe you're allowed to have. What does that look like as far as what percentage usually required down based upon the types for investing in property? Somebody wants to go out and get a second dwelling or Airbnb or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, typically what you're looking to do for the clients is get them in what they're looking to do for the best deal possible. If I can do something as a second home, I mean, especially right off the bat, like if it's somebody's first and other than their primary, their first purchase, I am looking very much at, okay, let's do this as a second home if it's possible. Now, it has to be a certain distance from their primary residence.
What are those guidelines? Are this based on, are they individuals of the mortgage company, or are they national type of guidelines as far as?
It's national guidelines. Okay. Yeah, so we're all playing by the same rules, essentially, in what I do. I don't work for private banking. We're a mortgage company.
Right.
So we're a non-depository. So what that means is we're playing by the same rules as everybody else. When it comes to the second home, you're looking at a lower down payment than a true investment purchase. So let's say that you own a home in Lexington, you want to buy another home in Lexington. You're looking at an investment purchase. What that means for you is two things. One, it means minimum 20% down payment.
Okay.
And in truth, multi-units right now, if you want any kind of a decent rate, you're going to be putting 25 down.
Okay.
But if you can do it,
a lot of commercial.
Yeah.
Percentage.
So if you can do it as a second home, you're looking at, and the other part of the investment purchase is that it's going to have a higher rate. Okay. So if you're doing it as a second home, that rate is going to be much closer to what a single, what a primary looks like, and it's going to be 10% down payment.
The difference, I guess, there on the conventional side, even though maybe 20% down, I assume it's probably, the nice thing would be it should be like a fixed rate type of scenario potentially versus, amortized or 5-7 years type of thing on a commercial.
Yeah, so that's going to be your main difference really in not only residential and commercial lending, but also the difference in a mortgage company and a private bank.
Yeah.
Private banking kind of, they're depository, so they can kind of make their own calls on what they can lend on, but they're not going to be probably a 30-year fixed product.
Yeah.
I have not put anybody in an adjustable rate product in a very long time.
Okay.
And the simple reason for that is adjustable rates are good for certain purposes, but right now with rates where they are, the fixed rate 30-year, I mean, is pretty, it's hard for me to I don't rule anything out initially, but when I review everybody, typically the fixed rate is where, you want to be at.
Is there a limit on how many conventional fixed rate type loans you can get?
So once you get past 4 financed properties, the landscape changes quite a bit as far as trying to get the loans through.
Okay.
You can do it, but you may be looking at a higher interest rate. And the reason for that is interest rates are all derived by risk factors. The government, your rate, my rate, if we sat down and both of us, we ran both our credits, we were purchasing the same property, the likelihood that we have the same interest rate is probably fairly slim.
Yeah.
Because there are so many factors that play in that are individual. So I tell everybody, no 2 loans are the same.
Okay.
No 2 qualifiers are going to be the same. So when you sit down and you really look at it, that's kind of the risk factors are what drives the rates. So that's why an investment property is going to have a higher interest rate than a second home or a primary, because they're thinking, the government's thinking on this is, and the investor's thinking on this is, if something happens to this borrower, some life event or something that reduces their income or makes things difficult for them, the likelihood is that they're going to let that investment property go first.
Yeah.
Before a second home or before a primary.
No one's giving up their primary.
Nobody's giving up their primary, exactly. So that's why that rate is automatically going to be about 1% higher than a primary interest rate.
Right. Now, obviously with a second home, vacation home type of thing, you can have both. They can't be obviously in the same market type of thing. Now, the difference on a conventional loan and I guess it's looked at a little bit different as far as the straight debt to income, where now you can, I guess, calculate parts of what's an estimated. Is it looked at in through the same window or same glasses? What I'm kind of as far as the debt to income side of things, or is there a factor now because you're not? It's more of a investment property where then potential investment as far as what you're grossing would be factored in.
Yeah, typically, if you can, you want to make the loan process as cut and dry as possible. But typically, if we need projected rental income, is you're speaking of. You can use projected rental income to qualify. Now, most of the time, we try not to. Just because it makes the process easier. Sure. If we don't use that, but if you had to, you could use projected rental income. That's certainly a possibility. I have a client right now or two that are buying other investment properties that own duplexes now. So as part of their income, we're using, the rental income they're deriving off that property, and then the projected rental income off of another property. I've got that on 2 separate deals right now. So, we do that. I mean, when you're looking at investing and you're looking at building a portfolio, you're looking to use the leverage that you have and what you own for the most part. I mean, some folks have the cash and that's great, but if you don't, then a lot of times people are leveraging a property to get another property, and then they'll domino that out. They'll leverage that property to get another property. I mean, that's typically what we see. Yeah.
I'm going through some of that currently right now, trying to buy investment properties out of state and we had to factor in a lot of the rental income in that scenario. So a little more hoops to jump through for sure, but all part of the process. I'm excited to learn more about it too myself, et cetera. So do you have any investment properties yourself?
I do not have any investment properties myself right now. I'm actually always on the lookout for potential investment properties. It's gotten a little tougher just because of the finding that $130,000, $140,000 investment property, single family residence, or even multi-unit has become fewer and further between. As everybody's pretty well aware, the good. It's a double-edged sword because the great thing about this market is it's super strong. Yeah. The bad thing about this market is if you're an investor, it's super strong. So right now it's a little tough to go find you a good buy. But I'm always on the lookout for a good investment property. Yeah.
I'm sure being made a real estate agent will only help that, hopefully, speed that process up.
I tend to, when people say don't take your work home, I definitely did not. I definitely did not listen to that.
Is there any kind of a crazy story or something that's happened or something that maybe you're proud of as far as the mortgage process, the story that you got for me?
I mean, really what I would say that I'm most proud of and the most satisfying loans for me to get done are not the 800 credit scores with 20% down payment. It's the folks that come to me and say, there's no way I can buy a house. Yeah. My credit's terrible. I know I can't do this, and are just defeated from the get-go. I usually try to instill some positivity into their mindset. Most folks, and they tell me my credit's terrible. I say, what's your credit score? Well, I don't know. Well, you don't know what you don't know, And,
100%.
And really, like, I have worked with clients. I mean, there are clients I've worked with for up to 3 years to get them eligible. Because folks, I mean, when you're younger, I mean, folks make mistakes with credit. The thing about credit is once you make a mistake, making the mistake is really easy. Undoing it is very difficult. Yeah. So I've worked with people for 3 years, to get them eligible for a home. But that's probably, I mean, as far as crazy stories, I mean, I've got some crazy ones, but they're more funny crazy. But I mean, the crazy aspect is that people are really sometimes come to me very defeated before we've even started. Yeah. They think that there's no way they can get a house. And then the day of closing, they're, in tears. They're so happy. I mean, it's very emotional, an emotional thing for anybody to buy a home. So that's the most gratifying. As far as crazy, yeah, I've had some things go crazy, but every deal is different.
Sure.
But yeah, that probably to me is the crazy aspect, is that people just think they can't do something and they don't really know what they can do.
Nice. 2022, what's some of your professional or personal goals you got going?
Well, professional goal this year is $20 million in volume.
There we go.
So that's where I want to be this year, or exceed that, obviously. That would bump me up from the bronze level. But, personal goals, my wife and I, we bought a house that was pretty much a time capsule. Like the very end of 2019, beginning of 2020, end of 2020, beginning of 2021. So we are in the process of bringing it into the current day.
Yeah,
and that has been an eye-opening experience. So
I think it's going to be this much, and it only compounds on itself.
It compounds faster than you can really even imagine. So we are enjoying that. My wife and I love to travel. We did a lot this past year. We're going to kind of buckle down this year and really focus on the house and business and things of that nature, and just kind of, take a break on the travel and try to focus on the house. Any
interesting previous jobs or side hustles you got?
No side hustles. So when I was growing up, my father owned a heating and air conditioning company, a plumbing, heating, and air company. I worked for him whenever I was off school, so breaks, winter, summer. I always knew it was going to be really, really hot wherever I was working in the summer, and really, really cold in the winter, because we were putting in the heating and AC. So you don't have either one of those things when you're working those jobs. So that was interesting. I've worked with some very, very colorful characters in that business. The law, and then I went, obviously, I practiced law for several years. Again, that's a job that's filled with color, for sure, as far as, day to day. But, those are the jobs that I worked. I mean, I played sports my whole life, and worked plumbing, HVAC, worked as a lawyer. Now I'm doing this. I mean, I guess I've been fortunate not to hop around too much.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate to have some longevity in everything I've done.
Glad to be back in the bluegrass, I assume. What's one of your favorite parts about just Kentucky, or if somebody was moving here? Because I know me and you both have clients that have just literally picked up, moved here, never been in the state before sometimes. And what are you telling them?
When I left Kentucky, I mean, I was gone 10 years. And when I left, I think I was ready to kind of get out and see the world a little bit. And when I came back here, it was a perfect timing kind of scenario. I was ready to come home.
Yeah.
Lexington has changed so much from when we were growing up.
100%.
And it's a great place. I mean, a great place to raise a family. I mean, people that I know that have moved here, some of the realtors I work with are just people who relocated from California. And they have a whole little community of folks that are from where they're from, and I get to know them, and they all love it here. And it's a really strong community in the sense that it's a big town, but it's a small town.
Oh yeah, I always say it's the biggest small town in America half the time.
But I mean, Kentucky is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an outdoors guy. If I can, I'm out. I would prefer to be outdoor. If it's not pouring down rain, I would rather be outside. I mean, that's pretty much the way of it. And just living this close to things like Red River Gorge and, all the lakes that we have. I mean, it's just, if you like to do things outdoors, it's just a great place to be. And it's so central to other things, Cincinnati, Nashville.
Yeah.
It's a great.
What is it, like half the population within an 8-hour drive type of thing?
Absolutely.
Or at least a day drive kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be a long day, but.
But I mean, it's such a great community here. I'm super excited about seeing everything that's going on here, from developments to, even with COVID, we unfortunately we lost some businesses, but hopefully they'll come back.
Yeah.
But the things that, more things survived here than survived other places in this country.
And one thing that I appreciate, I think, is, while, yes, there's a lot more development or figuring out ways to expand, as far as obviously population growth kind of, definitely booming over the last 10 years here, and a lot of Lexington and Central Kentucky has changed a lot, like you've said, is that they've also still tried to keep the integrity of a small town feel, the horse farms. You can literally take 20 minutes and then if you're in downtown, Lexington type of thing or something like that, and in 20 minutes you can be out in the country type of thing. And it's so close to that. It's hard to get that, I think, everywhere.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can get that anywhere, other than here. I mean, this is a very unique situation. You have the horse farms and the old feel, and, that kind of thing is living side by side with progress and development and things. But they've done a great job, you're right, about balancing, what are we going to do? Where are we going to build? What are we going to develop? What do we want to bring here? I commend the leadership for steering us to where we are now, because Lexington has changed a ton, but all for the better, in my opinion. With business development, there's a lot of young entrepreneurs that I know that are, investing money. People want to be here. Yeah. That's part of the reason why the housing, there's such a shortage of inventory. Everything, there's so many people competing for housing because people want to be here. People want to come here.
What are you and Amy watching on TV right now?
We just finished up Yellowstone.
Becky keeps telling me about it. I haven't watched it yet.
Man, I'm telling you, that is a great series. And then spin off of that, I'm like neck deep in 1883. The Yellowstone prequel, origin story, prequel. So I'm into that right now, pretty heavy. I'm waiting on them to release a new episode because I'm totally caught up. Yeah. But Yellowstone, that'd probably be the big one for us right now.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Go-to comfort food, man. I mean, if I gotta have it, I love a good pizza. I know that sounds crazy. Skyline chili, also. Okay. Shout out. I like some cheese conies as far as comfort food. And then I gotta give a shout out to my guys at Winchell's. I mean, you can't go wrong.
First concert and favorite concert.
First concert as a 3-year-old child, my mother and my aunt.
Wait, 3-year-old? Does it count?
Well, I mean, you said first.
Okay, first. Go ahead.
All right, so, I'll tell you what. I'll give you that one, and then I'll give you the first one that I actually went to. All right. So this is going to sound crazy. So my mother and my aunt took me to see Cyndi Lauper when I was 3. And she came out of the show she came out of a, Oscar the Grouch trash can. And somehow I know that, and I don't know how. I'm sure it's not I'm sure I can't remember it. But I know that happened. And then, so when I was, and this is going to sound really crazy. So first concert that I proactively made someone take me to was White Zombie when I was 12 in Louisville.
I don't know anything
standing room open. Yeah, I don't either anymore. Okay. I don't either anymore. But back then I was into it. So those were the first.
Favorite though?
Favorite, man, that is so hard.
I know you're a big concert guy.
Yeah, Amy and I go to a lot of music. I would say I would put Jazz Fest in New Orleans. Just in general, that's not a concert. Sure. That's 40 concerts. Oh, yeah. But Amy and I have been to that several times. We love the city of New Orleans. The music scene down there is incredible. Individual concerts, U2, saw them in Louisville. That was pretty fantastic. I'm a U2 guy. I really like their music. I mean, we've been to some great shows. If you ask my wife, she'd probably tell you Taylor Swift. Probably, but she put on a great show. I mean, I can't knock it.
May say the same thing. Actually.
Yeah, I can't knock it. But as far as that, I mean, the Revivalists, love those guys. We're always up for a good show.
Favorite trip you've ever taken?
Another really, really difficult question. Like I said, we love to travel. Yeah. I would say Antigua, my wife, because that was when I married Amy. We stayed at a beautiful resort. The people were fantastic. And, like I said, I married the love of my life. So that is number one for me. But been fortunate. I've spent 2 summers in Spain. Very, very, very in love with that country. Okay. Also spent a summer in Greece and Italy. Wow. So it's I've been fortunate to travel quite a bit. But if I had to rate one, because I got married, that's the one I'm putting number one. And
I believe you met a certain person.
I did. 30 minutes after we got married, we met Magic Johnson, and that was pretty incredible. I was on the phone texting my mother. Yeah. And Amy was elbowing me, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And I look over, and she's like, "Look up." And right in front of us is, from me to you, is Magic Johnson, and nicest guy you would ever want to meet. Amy's still in her wedding dress. I'm still in my suit. I'm sure he stopped because of her. She looked incredible, but he congratulated us, was very kind, even offered to take a picture with us. He did make sure to mention
you got a picture, right?
Yeah, I do have the picture.
Okay. If he offers to take a picture, you got to take a picture.
Yeah, we took a picture. He made sure to mention to put my wife in the middle, not me. So I didn't get hurt by that. I understand. But
it's her day.
Yeah, so pretty amazing though. Yeah, that was pretty incredible.
First car that you owned. We'll wrap this up here.
Oh, a '94 Ford Explorer teal SUV.
Okay. And local to the food scene here. What's your favorite kind of local date night place?
American holds a special place in my heart always. I love that place. Yeah, I've always loved it.
I've never been there. I don't know why.
You've never been there. I find that incredible.
I know. I don't know why I've never been there.
Great patio, great service. I think
I've missed out on a couple of things, opportunities where my family or somebody was going and I was busy. It's just never, I don't know why.
We have a lot of great restaurants here. The reason I like Merrick is that it's so unique. It's set back in that neighborhood of apartments and everything, and it's just
off Taste Creek, right?
Yeah, it's just so different than anywhere else. There's a lot of great restaurants, and I love tons of them. But Amy and I go there for a date night when we have a special occasion or something.
I definitely get over there. So anybody needs to get in touch with you, wants questions as far as what they need to start looking at for purchasing their first home, investment properties, or something like that, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Yeah, my cell phone or email. Do you want to put it out there? Yeah. Okay, so my cell phone is 859-221-6329. That I live on this thing. Yep. Also, my email, that's chase.holman, that's chase.holman at htlenders.com. That's HTLENDERS.com. Perfect. Chase, thanks so much for your time today, coming on the show, joining me here. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to having everyone join us next week for another insightful episode of the Keys to the Commonwealth podcast.
To learn more about this podcast, visit our page at keystothecommonwealth.com. To connect with Landry regarding insuring your investment portfolio, email Landry at novainsuranceGroup.com or call 859-687-2004.